Right, folks. So today we're going to discuss this form, SS4. Okay, this SS4 is really, really important, and to be honest, I think this is the first thing that you're going to encounter if you want to start a little business. All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. So what is EIN, or employer identification number? Okay, so the name is really, really important. This is called EIN. A lot of people say this is like the enterprise identification number. I think that's really, really misleading because it's called employer identification number. So not necessarily you have to start up an enterprise in order to have this number. Even if you say you are a sole proprietor, you also need this EIN if you want to doing some of the business. Okay, I'm going to discuss this later. And also, this employer identification number is also a little bit misleading. Even though you don't want to have or you don't have any employer or employee, right? So if you don't have an employee, you don't have an employer, right? Yeah, if you just, you're a sole proprietor, you employ yourself, or you're just the only member in, say, LLC, you know what? You're still employer, okay? You still need this EIN. Okay, so it's like in the employee in the border sense, or just some sort of name for that specific number, you know what, for your business. Okay, so basically this is like the social security number, the SSN, for your business. Okay, the SSN is so important, in everyday life. You're going to use the SSN. Well, if you want to do that for your business, you know what, you need this EIN. Right? So basically, this is a business version for Social Security number. And in the IRS terms, so basically, IRS uses the EIN to identify a business or a certain legal entity for tax filing as well as reporting purposes. Okay? And it's a 9-digit number. So you can just get a rule of thumb. So if it's shorter or longer than that, that's definitely not the EIN. Okay? And it's going to be issued if you use the form SS4 in order to get that. So let me just showcase this SS4. Okay, so that's SS4. Okay, and yeah, you file this form, and then you're going to receive this number in I think weekly basis. Okay. Okay, so let's continue to discuss a little bit about what is an EIN used for. Okay, so as I said, this is like a social security number for your business. So that means to identify a business or legal entity to the IRS. Okay, you might say, well, that's okay. I don't want to identify you, right? So I may, skip this process. I just want to do business. Okay, the hard truth is that you can't. Okay, you want to do business, there should be some financial transaction going on. So that will involve a bank account. So you know what? If you want to open a bank account, you have to use the EIN, okay? And say, well, I want to be a boss, but you know what? I don't want to apply the EIN. You know what? If you want to hire employee, you have to, you give them money through the, bank accounts. That you need a bank account in the first place in order to, distribute the money that you put into your company, put it into business, into your employees' account. So you know what, bank account as well as hire employees and then give them wages. You know what, you have to use the EIN. Okay, and of course, if you want to change, say, I want to change the type of organization and all that, or I don't know, I want to create a trust. Oh yeah, you use this EIN. Okay, so basically, this is a must if you want to do the normal business. Okay. And it's the first thing that you do. Oh, by the way, even though the application is pretty easy, and these do involve some other complications or explanations if you are applying this EIN for a specific purpose. So you know what? Fortunately, the IRS do allow that you designate someone, right? So we can use a third-party designee to receive the EIN for you. And they can sort of fax to you. So, for example, if you want to start a business, through a third party to handle all this administrative stuff for you, right? You know what? they can do that for you, and they can receive that for you, and they can sort of fax that to you, or email that to you, or sort of scan that to a PDF to you, whatever. And of course, they can answer questions for you as long as they sort of add their communications and all this information in this third-party designee section. Of course, if I just got some questions, say, hey, while you're applying for that, I got some, a mess of information or something like that, they can communicate with the third-party designee. Okay, so yeah, that's basically the like really brief introduction of this really important number, EIN, and then let's go through this form.